And with that, I want to welcome everybody to this first Jozi and Cape Town Pug meetup for the year. So welcome everybody. And also just some logistics for today. Like I mentioned earlier, that if you have any questions or so, please come off mute or even raise your hands. A lot of us, because we're presenting, we can't see the hands feature, but we've got moderators that checks the chat as well. And just the session will be recorded and will be made available afterwards. So feel free that if you want to view something again, we'll share that links as well of where the recordings are. And I just want to welcome everybody that's new to the meetup. And thank you guys for taking the time to join us today. I think it's an excellent session. Today, for the first part, it's myself and David, and later on, we've got a very own guest speaker, Tomasz, as well as Michael joining us. So just going to continue through to, some of the logistics, like I'm going to take you guys through what's new and in the news, and then we're going to get Tomasz to talk us through approvals that he's been building and taking that to the next level. So let's get started. So a new feature that we've recently launched, or it's been available for quite some time, is source code for Canvas apps. So in case you have a Canvas application that you are utilizing, you can now go and save that file and export it, and also make use of the solution packager to unpack the file itself and then bring that into source control. A great aspect of this is that once the file source control is available, you can then go and utilize tools like Visual Studio Code and in actual fact look at the XAML markup and also make changes in there, repackage it, and then also have that file in source control for your ALM process. So quite a nice feature that we've recently launched. The next feature that I want to talk about is in actual fact our intelligent or relevant search. So this is a great feature that's been made available with the new release, and it's very powerful in the sense that the way that we do search now is expanding new capabilities. You would be able to search for well-known abbreviations. So you'll see on the screen, people type in MS and it actually brings back Microsoft, as well as there's some spelling that we do. So for instance, if you misspell the word blue, the search results will bring in that word blue. And it's an overall great experience with the new search capabilities that you can bring back search throughout the platform itself, right? And then extend that obviously into things like advanced find and also great new capabilities that is introduced more intelligently within the search. The next feature that I would like to talk about is in actual fact the geospatial features. So what we've started doing here is we started adding in integration into the likes of Azure Maps. It's a great component if you are using features where you need to do address translation or even make use of the interactive maps component of Azure Maps. I've personally used this feature before and it's really awesome.
And if you have any questions on whether that is premium licensing or not, just hang on, and wait for Michael to join, then you can ask him.
So a quick one from my side, does that work with South African addresses or only stuff in the US?
No, so I've actually tested it with South African addresses and I got quite a good result out of it.
Cool.
Yeah. Something also that's available now is the push notification for model-driven apps. So very awesome feature in the sense that you can start pushing out now notifications and that will redirect the user to the model-driven app. I know this feature's been available, but for canvas-driven apps, and now it's also available using Power Automate for model-driven apps. So very awesome feature that's been requested quite a few times. And then also what we've got the general availability of monitor within Power Apps. And I think this is a tool that can really help everybody that are trying to figure out what's happening within their Power Apps. It brings back the metrics of that Power Apps that you can see, for instance, the time and also the execution chain of events that happens within the apps. You can also start monitoring those apps and also diagnose and troubleshoot and even make them faster based on the details and analytics that you get from monitoring component within Power Apps. And I think lastly, what I wanted to discuss today is you can now share applications or Dataverse or Teams applications, but beyond the team. So in case you've got a organization or function within the organization that's building out Power Apps within a team, you can now share that Power App across multiple users within the organization that's not necessarily in the same team as you are. So once again, a great new feature that's available just from our Dataverse platform teams perspective. And with that, I just want to check, David, anything from your side?
No, I think I'm good. I've got a couple that's lined up for the community discussion. So I don't know if we maybe want to jump into that. I see Thomas isn't online yet. I'm just talking to him. So I think in the meantime, I see that we've got a question about licensing and whether it's free. So unfortunately, Michael isn't in, so Mornay, you're going to have to grab this one.
Let me quickly check. Sorry, I can't see the chat at the moment. So
it's Hira Manish asking, is Dataverse for Teams really free? We need to start using it. And so just for Q&A later. So I think we can, Mornay, if you want to jump into that.
I've got no idea is the honest answer. From a licensing perspective, I've got no idea.
Yeah, so Ira, it is included in your team's entitlement. So the answer is yes. There are some limits with regard to sizing and certain capabilities though, and that you have to keep in mind. But you can actually do quite a lot with Dataverse for Teams out of the box. So I hope that answers your question. I'll actually just look for some documentation on that as well, and then I'll post it on in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, so Thomas seems to be having a problem to join. So I think let's start with the community discussion.
Okay, sure, no problem. And for those who are wondering what is our community discussion all about, is that there's been a new wave of features that's been released. And I think from a community discussion, the idea is that we just have maybe a quick roundtable on, what's your favorite features, what's the things that you're looking forward to that's been released, and just overall view on things. I actually think I saw Thomas now. Is he online?
Yeah, I am online, although struggling with some difficulties.
Oh, okay.
Welcome, Thomas. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Hello, sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Not a problem. We can give you a minute to settle in if you like, and then we can continue with one of the other sessions if you prefer, or else if you're good to go, you can get started.
Yeah, I think I'm good to go. even now. So that's up to you. If you can, let's say, host me right now, I can start with my presentation. Hopefully, it will all work.
Perfect.
So it's half an hour, right?
Yes, 100. So let me quickly give everybody an introduction. So everybody, we've got an absolute celebrity on the show today. Tomasz is a Microsoft most valued professional. He's been doing some fantastic work in the community and breaking open new technologies and also deeping in or delving in deeper into certain things. And that's what we're going to see today is what he's been doing with approvals. So we're really looking forward to this. Tomasz, thank you so much for joining us. And we're looking forward to seeing what you have to show.
All right. So I just have a very fast presentation just to show some slides. And then I'll dive into these, into details of what I can show you about approvals. So basically, maybe just a few words about myself. No, that's not the right slide. It's actually the last one. So my name is Tomasz Poszytek. I'm coming from Warsaw in Poland. I've never been actually to South Africa, and I've never seen your country, but I've been traveling remotely all over the world right now. So yeah, hopefully one day, once all the pandemic issues are resolved, we'll be able to meet in person. I'm looking forward to it. So anyways, I'm working with RPA, with Power Automate RPA, generally speaking, with the flows, cloud flows, SO flows for many years now. For like 4 years already, or even more than 4 years, I'm focusing really on Power Automate and cloud. So I'm just trying to very often resolve not that easygoing issues and problems. And this is getting me into digging really deep into how the solutions are built and how they work, so that I can try to resolve my own challenges. So if you'd like to maybe learn more about these challenges I'm facing, I am trying to record videos about each of them. So if you subscribe to my YouTube, you'll have access to those challenging challenges that I faced and how I resolve them. So anyways, what I wanted to say about approvals. First, just very brief introduction. I don't want to go through the basics, so how they are working, what options you have, and so on. I want to really focus on Dataverse and what we can do with them through Dataverse. So just one small disclaimer, because although approvals as a technology is free to use, because users who are creating approvals and accepting approvals and so on, they don't have do not have to have licenses for Power Automate, because all these operations, those write operations to approvals tables, are done on behalf of a system account, and therefore no subscription is needed for the users. However, in scenarios I will be showing to you, obviously the Power Automate per user plan or per flow plan, depending on the scenarios, is required. So anyways, flow approvals and as well Teams approvals, the basic Teams approvals are stored within 3 major tables, and there are some more supportive tables around it. So basically the main table is approval. This is where technology saves all the information about the header of the approval, like title, description, when it was created, who initiated, what approvals can be reassigned, whether notifications should be sent, and so on. In approval requests, this table holds information about every single task generating during the process. So if you create an approval which is assigned to 3 people, there will be 3 records in approval requests. And then approval response is a table that stores information about the outcomes of the task. So once a task is completed, in approval response, you will find information about the outcome, the comments, and so on. And well, user is just a table that helps you to map the Dataverse user to Azure Active Directory user. And lastly, the most important, or one of the most important tables in this automation or in these automatic scenarios that I will be showing to you is flow approval table, which stores information about the, well, let's say, all flows that are running in your environment, which are having either start and wait for approval or start approval process actions. So whenever you create a workflow and you trigger it, so there is a new instance, this is where you will find information about that instance as well, plus the so-called flow notification URI, so an URL that has to be called. You need to make a post request too, so that the flow that is waiting for an approval can be resumed. And that's it. Well, one important thing, because it's Dataverse, therefore approvals are related to a specific environment. Right. So I will now switch to Dataverse already. And if you have any questions during this presentation, simply unmute yourself and ask. That would be much easier for me because I'm not really following the chat window.
Thomas,
I'm
I'm watching.
There's like any issue with the presentation.
Yeah, I'll check the chat and let you know if there's anything that pops up.
Right. Okay. So where do I have my screen here? No, you can go. I don't need you anymore. All right. So what I want to show you now is a set of examples how we can actually work with Power Automate approvals through Dataverse. So first, I have this quite simple workflow that its only purpose is to simply start an approval process, then to show me, come on, oops, then to show me what is the flow approval ID or the approval ID. So right, there is the create approval, and then it will write out the approval ID, and then it will wait for the approval. And it is assigning a task to 3 employees, so more than one, and is waiting for everyone to approve. So that you'll see just waits and waits. And run. So first, what I would like to show you is the scenario where I would like to cancel a flow. So imagine a situation that you have a workflow which is running really long time, that approval cannot be completed because maybe some of the approvers are missing. I mean, on holidays or whatever, sick leave, just not available. The workflow initiator is also away, so they cannot go into approvals and cancel their approval from there. So that workflow is simply stuck and waiting endlessly for whatever. And so one of the solutions you could do, because approval cancellation is all happening within the approvals table. This is the table where you should update the record, set its status to inactive, status reason to cancelled. You should as well update the outcome to cancel and so on. And then the flow should be resumed. So not only updates in Dataverse have to be made, but as well you need to then resume the workflow so that it's not waiting anymore. And so I have here this flow that is called cancel task. It's as well not very complex, although much more than this one. What I need to provide to it is obviously this flow approval ID. And let me just briefly go through it so I can describe it, what it's doing step by step. I don't know if you're facing today issues with the speed of the infrastructure of the Office 365, but maybe it's only me, but it's just working extremely slow today to me. Oh, come on.
I have noticed some issues last week as well. Maybe it's since they reduced the Power Apps licensing costs that we're being throttled now.
Okay. So anyway, first the workflow is information about the user who is set here as the person who is going to cancel the task, so that I know it's that user's ID in Dataverse. It is just needed because later it will be used as a piece of the request body sent to the flow notification URI. Later, it's getting approval details, so all the information from the approval table for that given approval ID. And as well as mentioned, this flow approval record, so the one which actually holds information about the flow notification URI. So here I'm just trying to find the record that is having this flow approval ID equal to the one that is being passed as the input variable. And this is like common to every scenario I will be showing to you. So once I go through this description, I mean, through this, let's say, architecture, it is just the same for every other. Now then I'm setting this flow notification URI variable to the first record obtained from that response. However, in a case like this one, that you have create an approval and wait for an approval, in flow notification URI there are two entries. The first entry that has the same ID as this flow approval ID, approval ID, does not contain flow notification URI. The flow notification URI is stored in a second entry that is related to this action. However, this action has a quite different approval ID that corresponds to anything or nothing you can really obtain from the action that creates an approval. And so the way to, for me at least, to check if this notification URI is present, returned by action, by getting the row that has this approval ID, is to check if it's empty. If it's not empty, I mean, if it is empty, then I'm doing a second call to this flow approval record table. And this time I'm getting all rows, or at least a row, that has the same flow sequence ID. So that's another internal field within that table that is the same for all actions generated for the specific instance. And obviously, where the flow notification URI field starts with HTTPS, because this is the URL construction, it always starts from HTTPS. And so if the first attempt returns empty URL, then the second one returns the URL. So the workflow will be then, well, able to continue. And next step is that the record that has been generated in the approval table is marked as canceled. So this is like in several fields have to be updated, like the stage, the status reason, the approval stage key as well needs to be updated with this information, like underscore complete. And as well, the result and status must be set to cancelled and status to inactive. So this update is going to hide tasks from users' approval items. So even if there are some tasks still pending approval in this approval workflow, then if I navigate later to approvals, I won't find a task related to this approval anymore, because the header is going to be set as inactive. And then what the workflow is doing is concatenating the request body that is going to be sent to this flow notification URI. So in that case, it is first concatenating this, let's say, general piece of the response. And then it is as well building two arrays. The first one is the responses list, and the second one is responses summary list. So once I send it, once I show it to you in dynamic outputs, you will see what it is used for. And lastly, it is just composing this whole response body in steps. And finally, it's sending this request to this flow notification URI. So that's it. Now, once I trigger this workflow and provide that request, that approval ID as the input parameter, in the meantime, I hope it loads. All right, so as you can see now, this is there is this automatically approve or reject task assigned to me 6 minutes ago. So it's still there. It's still waiting for my approval. Although, sorry, it's taking that much time. Now I have no idea if that's because of sharing or other things, but okay, anyway. I'll put myself as the person, or maybe not myself, I'll put John Researcher as the person who canceled the task. And then let's hit it. So once this flow is done, and it should be done like within a second, this workflow is going to be completed. So this wait for approval is going to be well, replaced by the complete action. So as you see, waiting is now over. And what I can see in the dynamic output is the information that was sent through the request body to the flow notification URI. it just has to load. So the response summary, so that first table that you saw, is just that kind of a string. So if you have an approval that is waiting for more than one response, or even if it's waiting for just one response, you simply need to gather all approval responses. I mean, the information from the approval responses table, and then to build such a string, concatenate it, and make it as an array in JSON. And the responses is the other JSON, is the other array that holds this. Sorry, and the response. Yeah, sorry, and the responses is the other table or the array in that JSON that is as well the concatenated from user details. So there is user ID, the user display name, their email, and as well information about the response date and approval response, which is in this case the cancel, and comments. So what was provided as the comment to that action. And again, if you have more tasks, then under responses, you should simply have those JSONs for each single response that is gathered. In case of approval cancellation, this is not happening. So the only information that is being sent is like who canceled, when, why, possibly, and the outcome is always cancel. So this is how it looks. Basically, whatever you will send to this flow notification URI, that is very important. So you can try to build the request body sent to the flow notification URI that meets the schema expected by the approval section. However, if you don't, because you can actually send any JSON, you can send whatever you want. So if you send something else other than the JSON that is expected, then it will be simply available as the response body one-to-one. So I can really send here whatever I want and then use this information in well, further next steps of the flow. So it's like up to you what business logic you would like to create. Either you're waiting for this specific response or for anything else. So that was, let's say, the first attempt. Now, the second one, I do still have some time, is about the reassignment, because that's one of, again, very important scenarios. For example, in situations that you'd like to create a substitutions feature or solution so that you're assigning a task to a person, and then that person is on holiday and they cannot approve their task, but you'd like to reassign their task to someone else. That will be their substitute during their absence. And the goal is that you simply cannot reassign other people tasks if you're not the current assignee. However, through the Dataverse, it is again possible. So right now, I'll remove myself from the list of assignees because this time we'll just assign this task to only 2 employees. Now what's going on? Why it's not reacting? Right, and I'll trigger it. Oh, just one more thing. If I refresh this view here, then this automatically approve or task should not be visible anymore, because as said, the approval has been canceled, so it should be removed. And it's gone. All right. This time the workflow has assigned the task to has it to 2 employees. Now. Okay. And this is John Researcher's browser or account. So it's his account. And now if I refresh this view, he should see now the task assigned to him. So. Just sorry, there is something calling me.
Tomasz, the Mona here. While that's busy loading, just a few questions.
Yeah, stand by 3. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Because we're utilizing Dataverse here, right? So we would be able to view that in context of a customer or a record, correct? So I don't know if you've done this or seen this, but even creating maybe an activity on a activity wall, stating there's an approval happening, or you would be able to do something like that, or even have a business process change because of the state of an approval.
Right.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. I think that's very, very possible, and I think that's a great use case for this, where you want to bring the approvals closer to the data. And I think that's always in the approvals a big thing. If it's only visible in the approval section, where if you can actually bring it into the front end and closer to the data, I think it's a great idea, Mono.
Yes. So, for example, you can create your own application power-ups, or but basically you can simply query this data and then display. Even following this approach, you can display approvals from all environments in a single place. So simply create a solution that crawls through every environment you have and gathers information about the approvals and displays that in a single place. But indeed, it's very much useful when speaking about creating like an approvals hub, because this way accessing of approvals of tasks is not very useful. Even through the Microsoft Teams approvals application, it doesn't do the trick as well, because again you need to switch between environments to see the tasks which are assigned to you. So if you miss this small link to the small drop down to switch between environments, you can miss your task as well. So anyways, John has his task assigned. So if John was at the office, then he could simply reassign this task to someone else. But let's assume that John is not at the office. So what we could do is, again, to create a solution that in this scenario is simply going to take John's task and reassign it to myself. So what I will do now, where do I have that request? I think it's something with my machine, because as you can see, like everything is really, really working slow, and it's about the interface as well. So it's not only the web. Right. Come on. So now let's do the reassignment. So the reassignment works this way, that it simply makes the specific task as inactive, and it creates a new entry in a pull request table that looks up the original task, so that it's like a successor. But it's not that very simple in my case, because I need to as well know the flow approval or the approval request ID. So what I have to do as well is to navigate to Dataverse and to a table called approval requests, and then to find the specific flow approval request ID, so that I can provide this information to the workflow, so that it can reassign that specific task to myself. Now, obviously, what you let's say about speaking about the substitutions, the mechanism could work this way, that it simply looks up all approval request entries assigned to a specific person who is set to be out of office, and is reassigning them to a different person or different people depending on some other logic. But because I, let's say, don't have that kind of sophisticated mechanism right here, therefore I need to manually find that specific entry for the given approval ID, and just to do everything manually. So, and it's not on this page. I hope it will be on a second page. So that entry should be somewhere here. Right, there it is. So with that, I will have now the flow up, I mean the approval ID and approval request ID. Oh, there you go. I will now assign to myself. And I need to grab as well this value here, which is the approval request ID. And then run this flow, so that once it's done, and again, it should just take a moment. So it's already done. And then if I navigate to approvals, which I have opened here, right? No, here, received, yep. And refresh it already. This is really, really, really odd. And at the same time, I'll try to refresh John's interface, so that you'll see his task is gone.
Thomas, while we're waiting for that as well, I wanted to find out from you is that because we've got now that list of approvals in database as well, you can have a daily, let's say a daily flow or automated runs that can send out reminders in bulk, correct?
Mm-hmm. It is, yes, it is possible. Plus, there is a field in approvals table, which is not anyhow used through the interface. That is a due date. And this due date field can simply be updated through, again, the Dataverse actions. So what you could do as well is to simply create a logic. I mean, once you do assign a task, like in my scenario here, that logic you have between assign a task and then wait for a task is, for example, the update or this due date value, and then the notification flow that you mentioned could simply then go through or browse through the approvals table and pick up those tasks which are actually beyond the due date. Gosh, this is not a good day for demos.
That's really awesome news to hear. You know, we've been in a scenario, especially with people that's got a approval date of, let's say, 30 or 60 days, and they miss the notification of an approval, or even they go on December holiday leave, you know, things like that. And then what happens is that they can't approve because of, you know, the expiry date or the due date that's passed. Would you be able also to reassign, so based on specific parameters? So I know that you've shown us some of the capabilities, but let's say I've got a Power Automate that runs when I sit out of office to look at all my approvals that's pending and send that on to somebody else, like a proxy or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, so the only thing I didn't check is because there were 2 tasks assigned, and well, possibly the one I have picked for reassignment was assigned to Stefan, not to John, because John still has his task on him. Oh gosh, but once my interface loads, I should have that approval task assigned to me as well. But yeah, basically, the solution I have built some time ago about reassignment was actually working this way. I had a table. I had a table in Dataverse, yeah, somewhere here, and this table had like 4 fields. So it had a field to define the substitute, the substitution for, so like for whom the substitution is created, who is a substitute. So that's a table. And then the time span, so like from when to when this substitution should take place. And then there was as well the workflow, which was running on a schedule, and like every day it was checking that substitution table. And if there was like, if today was in the window of the time span of that substitution for a specific person, it was simply getting all tasks for that person, reassigning them to person indicated as a substitute. And then after the time span of this substitution, it was reassigning these tasks back to the original approver. So yeah, and again, the scenario that you mentioned, that if I'm on the out of office, then obviously it could work the same as well.
What you could also then do is automatically notify Monet with that idea earlier where you said that you could send a summary email listing all of the outstanding tasks or approvals. You could then also include that the manager, so you can send a summary email to the individual's manager to say that these are all of the tasks that are now overdue that have been assigned to that person. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Indeed, yes, that is feasible as well. The only thing that you have to really keep in mind is that that you need to have this subscription. So if the flow is simply running on a single user account, then the per flow license, the per user license is enough. If that would be a flow that would be used by the larger audience in the company, then you should consider the per flow. However, well, you can obviously as well query Dataverse through, I mean, from Logic Apps, and therefore such workflows which are more considered as maybe not integrational, but as a system workflows which are possibly going to run several times per day or even per hour, might be as well a good idea to simply move them to Logic Apps to have well, cheaper licenses. Speaking about my computer here, no idea why these approvals are not loading right now. Well, you have to trust me. You have to trust me that that there is a task assigned to me right now, but it's just not loading for some reason, and I have no idea why.
Michael, can you go and check on the back end quickly if you can see anything wrong?
Okay, I'm off.
Just restart the server there in your offices.
Thanks,
Good
David.
idea. Right. So anyway, let's do just another one example. I'll go back to that instance in a moment. In the meantime, I will edit this workflow again, and I'll just change the title so that new tasks are going to have a different name. But what I want to show is another example that is as well not feasible in Power Automate, although it was feasible in SharePoint Designer and then basically in SharePoint tasks. So the scenario where you assign a task to, well, several people, 5, 6, whomever, but you're not actually willing to have everyone responses, but you just want, for example, to have 50% of approvals or 60% of approvals. And then once you reach the 60%, you consider the approval as approved. And so this is not feasible in Power Automate, but again, when working with data on Dataverse, it is becoming possible. So let's do it this way. I will as well again add myself as an approver. And run it now. And so for that, I have again created a workflow or the Cloudflow, which is being triggered every time there is a new response provided in approval responses table. And it's simply looking up a custom table, which is going to, which holds all information about the approval ID and the number of percentage of approved responses or approved tasks that well is required for the workflow to move on. Yeah, hopefully I will be able to trigger it. Oh, oh gosh, okay, something maybe went wrong here in this reassignment. Let me check in a moment what is wrong with that reassignment, why I don't see the task, although I should see it. Right, so this is now going to be triggered. I will now move back to the Cloudflows I have prepared for this small demo. And as well, I have here an Excel file that is simply, where are you, my Excel file? You should open. That is simply that Dataverse table called Flow Quota Approvals opened in Excel. Yeah, but it's somewhere there trying to open as well. So this is the Excel file. It's really simple. It just, as said, contains these two fields. So what I need to do is to simply populate it with, oops, right, to simply populate it with the approval ID. What is going on? Yeah, my flow is running, so I should see that generated approval ID.
So maybe I missed that step. So you opened it, the file in Excel, and you've got connected to the database in Excel.
Right.
Okay.
So the point, yeah, you know how to do it, right? So once you navigate to a specific table in Dataverse, you can like click on data, and here you have this option to edit data in Excel. So this is what I've done on that my custom table. And what I want to do right now is to simply populate or create a new entry. Well, that could be done as well in the logic between the create an approval and wait for approval. So if you have a workflow which you want to complete after this specific number of responses, you can simply seal it in the workflow logic. And yeah. Let's say 60% now to publish it. Hopefully the connection is not lost between the Excel sheet and Dataverse. Oh, come on, what else can go wrong?
So, Thomas, how long did it take you to figure all of this out? Because I know that none of this is documented. So I've had a look at these tables in the past and I just closed them because they are hugely confusing. So how long did it take you to figure this out?
Well, actually, I started to figure out how the approvals work like somewhere even in 2019, because back then I was able to identify these 3 tables at least, which were well, required for the approvals. And then I was investigating the approval request, approval response. And then I simply figured out that I can use the approval ID which I have obtained through approvals action, and I can find it in approvals table, and then I was able to find the same ID in approval request and approval response. So that led me to thinking, okay, so if I can access this information through Dataverse, then maybe I can as well update them, because my goal was always to simply automatically resume workflows. And so then I realized as well that I am able to update this information. I as well, let's say, record it I was trying to see what is being changed if I complete an approval, cancel approval, reject approval, reassign approval. So this way of debugging or re-engineering, reverse engineering was being done to identify the changes. But I was really upset because even though I was really following the same steps as are being done on Dataverse through UI, the flows were not being resumed. And it was like last year, December, I think, that I found out this flow approvals table, where I found this flow notification URL, which allowed me simply to resume the flows. And that was it. So finally, I was able to not only make the proper changes, but I was as well able to complete the workflow tasks. And sorry, in the resume flows. Okay, right now, what I've done, I have populated this custom table with information that I want this flow to be completed after 60% of tasks are completed. And that means that it will be approved after 2 approvals. I have here a workflow that is being triggered every time a response is created. Just needs to show up. Really sorry for how it's behaving today. It all started when I upgraded to Windows 11, to be honest.
Who else is running Windows 11?
Just looking for
Just
time
on my spare PC.
to really make looking for some free time to make a fresh installation of everything I have on this laptop, because it's extremely disappointing now.
I'm also using Windows 11, and I've also noticed that Chrome is behaving strangely. So Chrome used to be my preferred browser, but now I'm actually moving on Edge, and Edge is now a lot better on Windows 11 than Chrome. That's my experience.
I'm using this Edge, but
Yeah,
it's still
I can see.
But it's not only about the browser. It's like today everything on my laptop is working extremely slow. I mean, possibly I should have restarted it before the session. maybe that would kick him or give it some speed. But anyway,
I
so
suspect
there
that's
is
a problem on the platform.
Anyway, there is this approval after 60%, so I'll simply approve my task. That I'm not going to lose any more time on well, loading other screens, and hopefully the solution screen is loaded now, so I can open the workflow, which is handling this scenario. Really, this is very, very disappointing.
Maybe something to try. Maybe your video might have an impact on
No, I mean,
the
I can turn it off, obviously, but I don't think it's going to make any change. Maybe I have it somewhere, no, in a history. Complete, something, no. So this is John's interfaces as well. He has this task, but I don't want to approve it because once I do, you'll simply see that the workflow is resumed. But before, I wanted to show you how this workflow, which is handling this scenario, actually behaves. So what it's doing. And I can't. Jesus. How long can it take to really load a web page? Yeah. Oh, come on. If I close everything I have opened, it will somehow help me to speed it up. So what I've also let's say noticed that when I'm using Camtasia 2021 to record my screen, it's as well slowing down extremely the connectivity. It's like every time I hit pause on recording with Camtasia, everything speeds up. But during recording, it's really very slow. So I'm using instead Camtasia 2020. However, this is not an issue here, hopefully. I mean, with Teams, it was never the issue that it was slowing down because of the screen sharing. The only Microsoft platform that was impacted somehow by screen sharing is RPA so far. Right. Yeah, gotcha. So now this is the workflow. So I'll just open it. And what you will see in a moment is that it has already run once because my task was approved. And once I approve the second task, it will simply resume the other workflow because it will obviously reach this 60% because 2 out of 3 is more than 60%. So what this workflow is doing, as mentioned, is being triggered anytime there is a row added to approval responses. Then it's getting this information like how many tasks have to be approved for this specific instance. Then it's getting information about all the requests that have been created so that it knows how many tasks were generated during this approval process. And well, obviously it's taking the details about the approval. And next, what it's doing is taking all responses for this specific approval. And then it's simply doing some math operations. So first, this is just to preview. So it's calculating this division of all tasks, approved tasks by all tasks. And if this percentage is simply higher than the number defined in the table. And so if yes, it is then doing the same steps as all the workflows that you already saw. So first is getting this approval response body. So the approval request body is going to be then sent to the flow notification URI. Then it's getting actually this flow notification URI from flow approval record. If it's empty, it's getting this URI by the sequence ID. And finally, it's making the approval as completed so that all those tasks which are still pending approval are disappearing. So once I approve John's task, let me just switch to this instance. So this is the one that we are waiting for to be approved. And this is John. Approve and confirm. So now in just a moment, this workflow is going to be completed. And that is because we have like 2 out of 3 tasks completed, which is, as said, the 60% completion rate. I mean, that it reaches the 60% or more. Just see if the instance has run. Okay, it ran 22 seconds ago. So either this instance is timed out, so I need to go back to, okay, here. Yeah, it timed out. It was waiting too long for. So anyways, as you see, it is already completed. And here, what I have in the dynamic outcomes is again this response summary. So I see who has approved. There was me and John researcher as well. And as well here in this responses table, there is several, there are the 2 information about first my response. So like, okay, it's done. And then John's, that's BAM. And that the outcome is approved 60%. So this way you can as well create such a scenarios that you want to have a workflow completed, even if not all approvers have approved their tasks, but the specific number of them have approved. So there is really a lot of scenarios you can accomplish using Dataverse. By updating and modifying raw Dataverse data run approvals. It's just your creativity that you have to, or maybe the business requirements that you have to convert into workflows. So with that, that's it. Sorry for this taking so much time to load and for me to be able to show you, but
no problem. Yes, Thomas, that is absolutely amazing, man. I don't even want to know how much time you spent on this. Have you thought about building like an approval studio ISV solution that you can package and sell to companies to better manage their approval processes?
So I do have like a small application here. It's called the Task Manager, although it really requires lots of work to be done. And today it's only working on one environment. So, well, I was rather thinking, blame me or call me stupid, but I was rather thinking about making this application as a piece of the Power Platform Center of Excellence. But I don't really have much time to complete any of such goals to work as a side project. because it still requires lots of work, really. So anyways, this application, if it loads, it's simply showing you all the tasks that are generated in a specific environment, and it allows you to complete them, reassign them, cancel them, and just do all these operations that users would be able to do using user interface, but through a single application for admins. So it's not really beautiful. it's just a tool, and I'm not an UX expert, so
This has got so much potential. I think that there are so many gaps in approvals that this can really fix and solve. I think this is definitely a massive opportunity. Well done with all of this.
yeah, thank you very much. I would like to show you the application, but now it's loading data. Anything today around data is taking time. So in the meantime, were there any other questions in the chat?
Tomasz, do you know maybe the little bit of what's planned ahead for this feature?
So I heard from
documentation would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I heard from Grapevine that they were working on some kind of API for approvals that would really allow you to work on this information through endpoints, so that you could really not use the data first approach, but to simply query the endpoints for these scenarios like reassignment, completion, cancellation. But I have no confirmation from product groups or whoever about it. So, and anyway, and no ETA as well. So it's just a rumor, I guess. And apart from that, only the latest major update was this application, the approvals application inside Microsoft Teams, and that's the biggest update I saw recently. So nothing unfortunately for the application itself.
I can see so much value putting this on the Power Apps portals for external users to see where they are in a process, or it's been approved or pending, or querying those type of things, you know.
Mm-hmm. I saw as well videos from Reza Darani. I think it was him who made an application. It was on SharePoint actually, where the application was showing these steps in approval. So, I mean, there are many different workarounds, but the approvals, the built-in feature in Power Automate is really underestimated because it's just sometimes so hard to use. And plus, it's only waiting these 30 days for the approval. So if you don't rethink the architecture of the approval, and you just don't create it in the way that is bulletproof, then simply your workflows are going to fail after these 30 days. So it has its pain points and it's weak in several situations. So anyways, the application is like that it allows you to like cancel a task or complete any user's task or reassign any user's task. And it works for most of the scenarios. So, well, that's basically it. But it's kind of useful. I mean, in this scenario that we were just discussing moments ago, this approval of 60%, here you can as well see that me and John, we have approved, but Stefan has not.
This is amazing, man. Well done.
No idea what went wrong in this scenario, why John's task or Stefan's task was not reassigned to myself. Maybe I took a wrong GUID for the workflow task for some reason. Yeah, but if there are any tasks which were reassigned, then maybe here. Oh, you know, by the way, what I can do simply is to navigate here and just reassign from Stefan to myself, and that will be as well enough. Or not, because why not? So this application as well simply allows me to do that. And here I now see that it has been reassigned from Stefan to myself. So Stefan task is no longer active. Mine is, right. So now I can approve or do something else. And well, that's the application to handle or to manage the tasks in a specific environment. But it really requires much more work to be ready for productive use.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who would put up their hands to support you in getting this done, because I think this is one of the apps that could make the world a better place.
Sounds nice.
Awesome, Thomas. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Thomas? Thomas, some very good feedback in the chat. Everybody's very impressed and all of that. So again, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. Is anyone else going to present content today, or I was just like the first and the last one?
No, so there's a community discussion now, so you're welcome to stay on if you want.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are good to go. But thank you very much, Thomas. It was a pleasure having you on the meetup.
Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I was just sorry for these issues with the machine and time of loading for the screens. But I hope that it somehow inspired you and will give you a kick to investigate and discover all this approval metadata and dataverse on your site.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Cool. So next up, we've got the community discussion on your favorite feature in the latest release or in the upcoming release plans. And so I think we're opening this up to the community. So does anybody have anything exciting that they've noticed in the past while in some of the latest releases, or then in any of the upcoming releases? So everybody, Tian, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so in solutions, they've added functionality to if you want to open up a flow, there's now an option to do that in a new window, which is also a pain in the ass if you would open it up and you would lose kind of where you were. So that's quite cool. I hope they extend it to applications as well.
Very cool. Has anybody seen the release waves, the documents that were published a little while ago on the waves for 2022? Maybe I should just put that in the chat as well. So Microsoft has released the release wave 1 plans for 2022 for Power Apps and Dynamics. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. But I think I'll paste that in the chat a little bit later. Anybody else that has some cool stuff coming on? Oh, so there's Michael posting it already. Cool. Has anybody noticed the find and replace function in the code window in Canvas apps, where you can actually search for a piece of code or a word or something in your Power FX and then replace it with something else?
No, I haven't seen that. Cool.
Yeah, so it's something new that I'm quite enjoying. And then in these released waves, there's a whole stack of things. So does anybody have anything that they're particularly excited about from these release waves?
I think for me, some of the things I enjoyed is the in-app notifications that's available, where you can actually generate a notification through using Power Automate as well, and then it will be available in the platform. If you combine that property with that push notification service, then and what we've seen here for Tomasz, then you get quite a comprehensive way of, notifying people that they need to approve something. So I thought that was very cool. And then also some of the things, but I don't believe it's release wave related. But what I found is also pretty nice is that there is new things that Fast Track released. One of them is like the adoption best practices and best practice guides. Also something else that I found pretty interesting just to read through is the implementation guide, because that covers basically everything end to end. So I'll also post those links in the chat if people are interested.
What I saw recently, and it's quite useful, is that the call HTTP endpoint. I mean, the SharePoint action in Power Automate that allows you to query any OData endpoint is now equipped with OData Builder. So even if you're not familiar with doing all these expressions in OData, then there is like a visual editor where you can simply define the conditions you want to use for filtering, sorting, or selecting fields, and that's useful.
Very cool. I think some of the things that I'm really excited about is custom pages, and so far they've been doing quite well, and obviously not all of it is in general availability yet, but so far it's actually been doing pretty well, and I just see so much opportunity for it in model-driven apps, as well as the fact that you know, obviously the calculated columns and roll-up columns, to be able to use power effects in those is just opens up so much opportunity. So I can't wait for those, and those are all planned for release 1 or release wave 1. I'm very excited about those. The co-presence in apps. So imagine working in a document or a record in a model-driven app, and it shows you who else is currently working on this and looking at this record. I think that's just going to open up a whole new dynamic in updating records in Dataverse. And then what else was there? Prefetching data in Canvas apps. So if you want to currently cache data in a Canvas app, you have to jump through a whole lot of loops and have collections, local collections, caching the data on startup, where that's now going to be built in and an actual prefetch functionality in Power Apps off the bat. So that's going to be hugely beneficial. Sorry, Michael, I'm just rambling off, and I don't even put my hand up. So I see you've got manners, and you actually did. So over to you.
Look, I wouldn't say I've got manners, that's for sure. But thank you for recognizing the hand. So there were two that caught my eye that I thought were quite cool, only because one has been a pain, and that is in Power Automate, you will be able to resubmit several or many failed flow runs at the same time. So what happens today is if a flow run failed, you would go and you would see that the flow run failed. There it is. It happened at 2 minutes past 5, and you'd click it and say resubmit. Now, what I've seen, and one of my customers had this issue where there was over 1,000 that had failed because actually they had done something silly, long story, but 1,000 had failed. And so they had to go and click every single one to resubmit it. Otherwise, the backend database didn't get the information that was coming through the flow. So now you can select all, resubmit. So that's cool. And then the other one that I thought was interesting, but I don't quite know how it plays out and what it looks like, is at the moment in Power Virtual Agent, if you want to connect to some backend type of system, you want to do something, connect to SQL, Oracle, Salesforce, whatever it is from Power Virtual Agent, what you do is you go in, You add a new action in the Power Virtual Agent canvas. You say, okay, I want a new step. And the step is called Start a Flow. And then you go and build your logic in your Power Automate flow, which is very cool. I mean, it gives you a huge amount of capability. I mean, essentially what you can do then, is endless. But what they're doing is, what the release article says is that you don't have to you don't have to say, create a flow. You can essentially, it looks like you can do those connections and those steps directly in the Power Virtual Agent authoring canvas, which looks pretty interesting. It just means it's, I guess, maybe easier to read and construct, and it's directly in PVA. So that's what it looks like. That's what the release note seems to suggest. So those are my two. I see there's some hands up as well. Should I see who put their hand up first? There's a number 1 and number 2. Tian? Yes, I know. I owe you a bag. I promise you'll get it.
No stress. David, not sure if it's the same one you were speaking about, but the Git versioning. I still need to play with it, but the functionality that 2 people or more than 1 person can edit an app at the same time. I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunities especially for devs. And then it might sound like a very stupid and small thing, but on a canvas editor, the back button at the top, it actually asks you, are you sure you want to do this, or do you want to save before you go away from the window? I've lost changes a few times because of accidentally hitting that button. And that's me.
Yeah, thanks, Tian. There is the functionality of makers being able to merge releases as well, and I think that's more in line with what you're mentioning now. But that's just imagine having multiple makers working on the same Power App. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
Definitely.
Peter, you've got your hand up.
I think one of the other interesting ones that I've seen is it was launched last year on Android, but now coming on iOS also is this the ability to compile basically native standalone apps, mobile apps.
Ooh, yes.
So you don't need to use the Power Apps app anymore. You can now compile your app and then distribute it via something like Intune or something like that. So that's quite interesting also.
Yeah, now we can rebuild the Uber app properly.
Good luck.
Yeah, I think that's going to open up a whole lot of new opportunities for Power Apps and Microsoft in general. Anybody else with anything they would like to mention? So we can move on to the quiz, and there's still a Logitech presenter that we need to give away from the December meetup. So if there's no more suggestions, Mona, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think the last one I just want to mention is that there's a deprecation of the Dynamics 365 connector. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be replaced by the Dataverse connector. So that's happening now or happening soon. So just be aware of that.
Yeah,
I'll post more info as well.
Yeah, it's been coming for a while. I think it's a good thing. It's just that word is such a deprecation. It's just such a terrible, ugly word. But yes, I think that's going to come back and roost. Cool. So, Michael, are you jumping onto the quiz?
Pardon me?
The crickets. So are we just going to give the Logitech away for?
Was I supposed to create a quiz?
I
can quickly do one.
Sorry,
Don't
man.
do
That's
that to
the quiz showdown on the agenda item.
Yeah. Sorry. David, are you being serious, or are you messing with me again now? No.
I'm actually being serious, but if you want to ask a like a question like who's running Windows 11 and the first guy who responds gets the presenter, that's fine as well.
Well, we could do a question and then it's just the first who has their hand up. And what's nice now is this hand up feature tells you whose hand up was first. And then we just ask them to speak out loud.
Do you have to know the answer or can you just put your hand up?
No, you certainly can just put your hand up, but obviously if you get it wrong, you have to give something up.
Yeah, then you have to pay for the gift.
Then you have to buy it.
All right, cool. Well, now you've got your hands up.
Oh, we're not playing yet.
It sounds like a song. All the ladies, put your hands up.
I'm doing it right. Wait. There we go.
There's a song like that. Am I giving away my age?
It's all the single ladies from Beyonce.
Yes,
Well done,
Giovanni.
Solid. Well done.
Just following suit. Single ladies, put your hands up.
This is going nowhere. Michael, you have to please get control of the crowd. It's getting rowdy.
Since I was late and I haven't said it, Happy New Year, everyone.
What New Year? We're looking forward to Christmas
It's
already.
almost Christmas again. Yeah, I agree with you. It's almost Christmas.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say Happy New Year. It's just Happy Year.
Oh,
But a Happy Year to you as well. All right,
Okay.
Michael.
Okay, do you want me to ask a question?
Yeah, so we've entrusted you with the quiz. So in whatever shape or form you feel relevant or appropriate, please go ahead and give away the Logitech presenter.
Right. So
Should we maybe just show people what's on the cards before we start?
yeah. Show them what's up for grabs. Are you sharing your desktop or?
I am just going to post a link into the chat.
Okay. Look, I want to win this thing. It's pretty darn cool. I've always wanted one of these. And they're like 2,500 Rand or something crazy. So if you do demos, this thing is the best ever. Whether you're doing internal demos to show people your app or you're demoing to potential clients or whatever, it's just so cool to use this spotlight presenter.
I think if Thomas wins, he needs to come to South Africa. It will be cheaper than the shipping there.
Thomas probably already has one.
This Logitech, yeah, I do have one, and it's really awesome. I can admit.
But it's always nice to have two, right? It's nice to have a
Why? No. I'm far away from collecting items. One is enough.
It's for really advanced presenters that present with two hands. If you have a Logitech spotlight in each hand doing two different screens, you know, that just takes presentation to the next level.
That won't work.
My brain will give an error. All right, so
Yeah,
Michael,
okay.
over to you.
Cool. Now I see, Giovanni, you have your hand up. So I don't know if you're preempting the question.
Not at all. I was
Okay.
following suit of
Okay.
all the single ladies, but let's go for it.
Okay, cool. So the way that we'll work this is you can only put up your hand after I've finished saying the question, really. So yeah, don't put it up yet because then I can't see who's first. So take your hand down, please. Okay, well, we'll see who's second then. Okay, so there's this awesome book. I need to know who the author is of the book. So you're going to come off mute if you're first up, and you're going to tell us who the author is. And the title of the book is Microsoft Power Apps Cookbook.
can I say?
No, you need to put your hand up.
Oh, sorry. Hand up. There we go.
Oh,
Okay.
that is too bad, Karika.
Was I beaten by Tian?
You were.
Oh,
You
darn
were.
it.
Well, you know, might know. Yeah, let's see. Tian, do you want to tell us who the author is?
I'm just going to take a wild stab because you're always doing the cookbook stuff, and it's you.
It's not me. It's not me. Karika.
Okay, I hope I'm not wrong on this. That would be awkward. Is it, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Eichel Mendoza?
Yay! Amazing.
Is that right?
That's correct. I don't know how to pronounce
yes,
it either,
yes.
but I think you've done it right.
Top Google skills.
You gotta know it. You gotta know how to do stuff, man.
Awesome, Karika. Congratulations. That is so cool.
Thanks, guys.
Tian, did you get
So I
that
guess
wrong?
that automatically puts me up for demoing in our next community event, hey?
With the spotlight, yes.
Yeah, I think it's time for a face-to-face again.
I do believe, I say the same, please. That would be so awesome.
And then Karika gets to play with a new toy. And we can everybody sit and watch.
Sounds fun.
So Tian, did you get that wrong on purpose? Because the previous December community, you just took all the prizes.
Of course, I can't take everything.
Awesome,
Thanks,
Karika.
Tian.
That was a
Congratulations.
wild guess. Never heard of the book.
Did you think Michael wrote that book?
Well, he's presenting on it every session, so
Yeah, it's
I
always
actually still
Michael's
think
book.
he is the.
Yeah.
He wrote a licensing, like 10 top tricks of getting around Power Apps licensing. That's the one Michael did. The cheat sheet.
Yeah, Michael is always cooking up some other demo.
Awesome, everybody. Well, thank you for joining. And anybody else that has any open floor discussions they want to have, any ideas or suggestions for the meetup in 2022, other than it being face-to-face, and I think we're in a position where we now need to start pushing for that again.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is an approval flow 101 question, right? So I'm not a developer by background, but we're starting to pull more and more workflows in my Power Automate. And I just want to know, what's the best way to manage approval lists? So, for approval actions across the various workflow processes. So, I mean, one way you can do it is you define the person inside the workflow themselves. But then if that person leaves, or like what we saw with Thomas's demo today, we could do it in a more different way. But just say if somebody leaves, then you have to go into the flow to change the email address of the approver, etc., etc. So what I started doing was I built a SharePoint list, and I've created a name of the workflow, and I've put the approver or approvers in that particular list item. And then inside my flow, I look that up to say, okay, who is the approver for this particular action item right now? And then obviously it means that I've got a single place to probably manage all the approvers going forward, instead of trying to update each flow when somebody leaves or somebody goes on holiday or whatever. Is that the best way to do it, or is there a nicer way?
If I can answer, I don't know if there is like a best way or the best practice how to do that. There is no guidelines around that, so it's all about how you think it's the best way. From that perspective, that you want to avoid licenses, because having this information on SharePoint simply allows you to use the seeded license from SharePoint. So that's a good approach, obviously. I've been also using SharePoint to handle substitutions, and as well to handle long running workflows. But what you could do as well is to simply store the same information in Dataverse and to have everything like in the tables in Dataverse, which would be as well fine. Or to create yourself an application where you can reassign any task that is assigned to someone else.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to publish yours. Thanks. Thank you. No, that's so cool, Thomas. And definitely, I need to look at Dataverse for Teams because it's something I have no experience with. And the first question I raised in this meeting today was, is Dataverse for Teams actually free? And Michael was supposed to answer that, I think. Michael. So hopefully you can answer that question for me. Thank you.
Was that which Michael?
I don't know. Just David said Michael. So
Oh
which
yeah,
Michael
it's
it is.
proverbial David, hospital pass. So Dataverse for Teams, I wouldn't use the word free, but it's included in your Teams and your Microsoft 365 subscription. So you don't have to license it, through a Power App Premium license or a specific Dataverse license. So if you've got Office 365 and you've got Teams, you can create a Dataverse for Teams in a team. It's included.
And if you have both, like the proper Dataverse, I'm sorry, I'm calling it proper Dataverse because I'm not sure what the term is.
Yeah.
It's better to probably use that then because I'm certain we've got access to both.
Obviously, the Microsoft Dataverse for Teams has its limitations. Like you can only store the 1 GB of data. There are no sophisticated or complex security roles. There are just 5 roles that you can choose from. And well, it's just much more simpler. And yeah.
Okay.
So if you have access to both, I would prefer, and I would choose the regular Dataverse as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for answering my questions.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Anything else in the open floor discussion? Then thank you again for Thomas. Great session. I've got so many ideas and can just see so many ways to make approvals better. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much everybody else for attending. And congratulations again, Karika. And then we'll see everybody again for the March meetup. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
very much.
everybody. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, Manoj.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Michael.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thomas. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.